Hey, what's up? What's up, everybody? What is up? I haven't done one of these in a while, so I figured I would do one. Oh, I need this remote control for the fan. Set this. I've got too much stuff right now. Too much stuff. I need to have a booth cleaning day. Haven't done one of these in a while. Thank you for joining this. I'm just going to be working, so you can sit and watch. I usually try to do these live, but they've been slowing down my network and kind of causing issues, so I'll be posting this on the YouTube. I don't know, I'll probably go for 20, 30 minutes or something like that. So, because I haven't done anything from Matt Serafini's Ocean Grave yet, so I figured I would do a little video here. I'm also on Discord right now as well, so whoever's on Discord right now, what's up? But before I do anything, I wanted to kind of let everyone know what's been going on as well. So I have a day job. This isn't my full-time job. I work for a local utility, and we've been very busy. I draw in AutoCAD. So my audiobook production during this whole, pandemic bullshit has really slowed down. So I feel like I've been just chipping away at audiobooks. And my productivity with audiobooks has been really very much slowed down. It's been very frustrating. But of course, me loving this stuff so much, I can't not be doing anything. So I've been working with Encyclopocalypse Publications. I did a book for them earlier this year called The Brain Eaters, and I have a shit ton more projects with them lined up for next year. I was hoping to get some of those projects this year, but with everything being slow, I hadn't. But what I have been doing is I had found the rights to some books, and it's been pretty cool to kind of see this happen. So there's one book called Silverglass from 1986. It's a 4-book series by J.F. Rivkin. It's actually a pseudonym of two women writers from the 80s. They work in medical journals now. They don't write fiction. But here's the new paperback book right here. Newly published, because I've tracked them down. We got the publishing rights, and we brought this back to paperback. It'd been out of print, cheap 80s copies, but the story's so cool and it was ahead of its time that I was like, man, we got to bring this back. Shout out to A.A. Warren, who first told me about these books, and I started reading them. I bought them all and read a little bit, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. So I went through a whole thing where I auditioned a bunch of narrators for the audiobook, and Avon Shore was the one that we picked. She'd rocked this thing, and I think she's just completed the second book. So that's back on paperback, which is awesome, ebook and audiobook. So it's been kind of a fun journey, chipping away. And this is months and months in the making. I think I first found the rights in February or January. So another thing, and this is a book that I'll actually be doing the audio on, is this thing right here, Killer Flies, another pseudonym. So the pseudonym name is Mark Kendall, but it's actually, I'm going to mess her name up. Hold on a second. I believe it is Melinda Snodgrass. She was a writer for Star Trek The Next Generation. She has a couple series in her own right. She's done some things with a book with George R.R. Martin called Double Solitaire. So she's done a lot. So this was back in the 80s, she needed some rent money or something. And she knew someone who was involved publishing this Animals Attack books for Signet. Sorry, I keep looking the wrong way. I need to look this way. So they were publishing a bunch of Animals Attack books. And they're like, yeah, just write something for us, whatever amount of words. So she rocked out Killer Flies in a month to pay her rent. So pretty cool story with that. I'm hoping to do a podcast interview with her on that. The greatest thing about this book, it's it's batshit crazy, and I can't wait to talk to her about it. But I realize I'm not full screen. I'm just this little box right here, but whatever. The greatest thing about this is she kind of creates a whole persona for Mark Kendall for her. And she starts this off, Mark Kendall starts this off, for the gamers, you know who you are, who taught me how to adventure. And then at the end, there's about the author, and it goes, Mark Kendall was born in Cape Town, South Africa in 1942. He is a cultural anthropologist, currently living in Santa Fe, New Mexico. He's a crack shot, an expert horseman who flew medical supplies to Biafra during the Nigerian Civil War. So it's great. She gets it. When you read it, it reads just like all these kind of 80s paperbacks from hell. It reads like it's written by a man. Just once you know the backstory, it's even more brilliant. But so that's been kind of a fun side thing I've been doing, is kind of bringing some out-of-print books back into print. So that's been awesome. Where am I going to put these now? I'm out of room for all this. Hold on a second. So yeah, fun shit. Drink of water here. So all this kind of solidifies, like, this is what I would love to do on a daily basis. All this stuff, publishing, audiobook stuff. We'll see. I got to put a sack over this so it doesn't make noise. Helps deaden the sound. Very fancy here in the Screaming Pod Studios. All right. Let's do some work. Enough of my yapping. All right. So those are on those books are on Amazon. You can also go to encyclopocalypse.com if you can spell it right and find those. But if you search up Killer Flies and Mark Kendall and then Silver Glass, J.F. Rivkin, you'll find those. And anyway, so they also, Encyclopocalypse also published the Fright Night novelization and the Reanimator novelization, doing just fantastic work. I'm lucky to kind of be helping out a little bit with this kind of stuff. Oh, not a salary or anything. It's for the love of it. Because we love this stuff. Which is true. All right. Ocean Grave. This has been a tough nut to crack. Because there's Malagasy accent, which I've kind of brought into kind of like a generic African accent, which is, I had to make a creative choice because the Malagasy accent is like this cross between French accent, like kind of a, generic African accent, I guess you can say, and Polynesian. So I was just like, I don't know. So I kind of had to come to a decision, to be able to just get the characters across, So I got to do a French accent, which, I don't know about my French accents. What are you going to do? Damn you, Matt Serafini. And there's a point in the book where I do actually have to speak Malagasy. And luckily I found one person who could help me out with it. Bizarre. All right. I'm not going to set up the story. I'm just going to work. I'm going to try to kind of keep things at a pace. We'll see. I might flub up a lot. So this is raw, nitty-gritty. Okay? So I'm going to be editing and all this editing, punching and rolling and all that stuff. So 13. 13. I got these. I kind of set these up so I can just kind of space them in properly. The biggest issue lately, and I don't know if it's because of the weather right now or what, is the goddamn like nose farts. Like, any sinuses? Bizarre. You never notice this stuff when you talk to people. Ever. Never. And then I record myself, and it's like I'm playing a freaking flute with my nose. I hate it. It's the most frustrating thing. And you can see them when you edit in the spectral view. You can see the little squeaks. 13. So there we go. I've heard myself kind of doing it. I've heard the noise come through. All right. I may clear my throat if you're sensitive to that stuff. Tough shit. This is the real shit. Okay. This is the real shit. 13. I make it sound like this, like, oh, whatever. Okay. 13. The Zodiac boat zipped through the shallows on the far side of Nosy Be. Island fires dance across the shoreline there. See? The shallows on the Zodiac boat zipped through the shallows on the far side of Nosy Be. The shallows on the far side of Nosy Be. Island fires danced across the shoreline. Island fires danced across the shoreline there, guiding them toward Madagascar's tip. Toward Ansaranana. Toward Madagascar's tip. Toward Madagascar's tip. Toward Ansaranana. Guiding them across the shoreline there, guiding them toward Madagascar. Island fires danced across the shoreline there. Island fires danced across the shoreline there. Island fires danced across the shoreline there. Island fires danced. See if I can slow it down. I feel like I'm rushing. The shallows on the far side of Nosy Be. Island fires danced across the shoreline there. Island fires danced across the shoreline there. Island fire. Let's see. Far side of Nosy Be. Island fires danced across the shoreline there. Island fires danced across the shoreline there. Island fires danced across the shoreline there. Island fires danced across the shoreline. Whoop. Guiding them toward Madagascar. Shoreline there. Danced across the shoreline there. Guiding them toward Madagascar's tip. Toward Ansaranana. Them toward across the shoreline there. Guiding them toward Madagascar's tip. Madagascar's tip. Across the shoreline there. Madagascar's tip. Toward Ansaranana. Madagascar's tip. Toward Ansaranana. Okay. Across the shoreline there. Alright, that's got to move on. Here we go. I feel like kind of through the sessions I feel like sometimes when it's been a long day at the day job and the kids and everything, trying to kind of get in the groove is always a bit toward Madagascar's tip. Toward Ansaranana. Madagascar's tip. Toward Ansaranana. Toward Ansaranana. Toward Ansaranana. Madagascar's tip. Toward Ansaranana. Madagascar's tip. All's better out there. Toward Madagascar's tip. Toward Ansaranana. It wasn't the fastest way. Come on, Sean, let's get in the groove, man. It wasn't the fastest way. Toward Ansaranana. It wasn't the fastest way. But Kahin knew they would find the least amount of resistance. But Kahin knew they would find the least amount of resistance there. But Kahin knew they would find the least amount of resistance there. Given the Algerian ambush by Langley spooks. Given the Algerian ambush by Langley spooks. He was through taking chances. He was through taking chances. I'll get there. See, I should start recording like after I've been recording a little bit. Taking chances. He was through spooks. He was through taking chances. spooks. But, given the Algerian, would find the least. But Kahin knew they would find the least amount of resistance there. But Kahin, but Ka- but Ka- but Kahin, but Kahin knew just way. But Kahin knew they would find the least amount of resistance there. I said there instead of here. It wasn't the fastest way. But Kahin knew they would find the least amount of resistance here. But it wasn't the fastest way. But Kahin knew they would find the least amount of resistance here. But Kahin knew they would find the least amount of resistance here. Given the Algerian ambush by Langley spooks, he was through taking chances. There's a couple CIA characters I'll try to do a video with. Friggin' hilarious. He was through taking chances, I think. He was through taking chances. His feet tapped solid board beneath his... He was through taking chances. His feet... God damn it. He was through taking chances. His feet tapped solid board beneath his feet, while stomach acid swam at the back of his throat. If they had taken him alive, there would have been questions. Where was the star time? Where was the star time? What happened to the people aboard it? Kahin was not prepared to answer.
Okay, let's go a little
Feet tapped solid board. His feet
run.
tapped solid, while stomach acid swam at the back of his throat. Answers. His feet tapped solid. Answers. His feet tapped solid board. So this is a royalty share, so I'm trying to edit as I go here. Now, if I had an editor involved, I would be just shooting the shit out and sending it to him. Like, I was still punching and roll, but I wouldn't be trying to clean things up a little bit. His feet. What I'm trying to do is at least get the flow going, and then I'll go back in and master it. His throat. His feet, while stomach acid swam at the back of his throat. If they had taken him alive, his throat. Where was the star? There would have been questions. Taken him alive, there would have been questions. Where was the star time? What happened? There would have been questions. Where was the star time? What happened to the people aboard it? Star time. What happened to the people aboard it? Kahin was not prepared to answer. Kahin aboard it. Aboard it. Happened to the people aboard it? Kahin was not prepared to answer. Happened to the people aboard it? Kahin was not prepared to answer. That meant they'd imprison him in some CIA black site. That meant they'd imprison him in some CIA black site, conjure his house on a satellite feed, and threaten to drone strike it. Langley wasn't going to abandon the Langley wasn't going to abandon Langley wasn't going to abandon their search. Langley wasn't going to abandon their search. Getting tongue-tied here. Langley wasn't going to abandon their search for him just yet. Langley.
For fuck's sake, Sean, let's get it going here.
That meant they'd imprison him and conjure his house and threaten to drone strike it. Langley wasn't drone strike it. Langley wasn't going to abandon their search for him just yet. Drone strike it. Imprison him and that meant they'd imprison him. Good Lord. Imprison him in some CIA black site, conjure his house on a satellite feed, and threaten to drone strike it. Langley wasn't going to abandon their search for him just yet. And drone strike it. Langley wasn't going to abandon their search and threaten to drone strike it. Langley wasn't going to abandon their search for him. Langley wasn't going to abandon their search for him just yet. Langley wasn't going to abandon their search for him just yet. Langley wasn't going to abandon and threaten to drone strike it. Langley wasn't going to abandon their search for him just yet. Langley wasn't going to abandon their search for him just yet. I'm over-directing in my head here. Drone strike it. Langley wasn't going to abandon the search for him just yet. Langley wasn't going to abandon the search for him. Langley wasn't going to abandon the search for him just yet. Langley wasn't going to abandon the search for him just yet. And drone strike it. Langley wasn't going to abandon the search for him just yet. Langley wasn't going to search for him just yet. Drone strike it. Langley wasn't going to abandon the search for him. Drone strike it. Langley wasn't going to abandon the search for him just yet. Cahin's point man lifted the portable searchlight and clicked it. The sky was so dark they appeared to be floating across glass. Only it wasn't glass that Cahin looked at. But wreckage. The remnants of what had been a fine seafaring vessel. It was driftwood now. Broken into 1,000 pieces, bobbing like it was trying to reassemble itself. Cahin's point man lifted the portable searchlight and clicked it. The sky was so dark, only it wasn't glass that Cahin looked at. But wreckage. The remnants, it was driftwood now. Do this right here, and I got a couple of nose squeaks to fix. Broken into 1,000, bobbing like it was trying to reassemble itself. I need to figure out how to switch the screen so you can see the spectral view. Just give me a second while I squash these squeaks. I'm trying to catch these squeaks. Sometimes my proofer does. But when I go through my mastering, like I said, I'm trying to pump these out because the longer you take on a book for royalty share, the less money you're going to make if you do like the math, on how long you've taken to make the thing. So you always got to try to find like the quickest but like most quick but quality. So if I can tell as I'm doing it, if I know, all right, that area had some squeaks in it, I'll just handle it now while I'm here. Just because I know that it happened, like the squeaks happened. And luckily with spectral view, you can kind of see the squeaks as they happen. All right. Squeaks squashed. And as I do the mastering, I'll kind of visually go through, find any underlying, errors. I'll have to try to do a video on my kind of. And my mastering is different for different things. Like, I only do this kind of mastering for the royalty share. Otherwise, I just have my editor do it all. But now, I was trying to reassemble itself. But I was in pieces, bobbing like it was trying to reassemble itself. The Zodiac boat slowed and puttered through the mess, careful not to damage its propeller on the flotsam. It was everywhere, as far as the searchlight could see. The Zodiac boat and puttered through the mess, careful not to damage its propeller. I thought I was going to do it. I thought I was going to go through without messing up. And puttered through the mess, careful not to damage his. And it was everywhere. It's everywhere. As far as the searchlight could see. It's everywhere. As far as the searchlight on the flotsam. It was everywhere. As far as the searchlight could see. Somewhere inside the crushing black of night, human cries were louder than the motor. Gibberish at first, but growing into something slightly more coherent. But growing into something slightly more coherent. But growing into something slightly more coherent. But growing into something slightly more coherent the longer their ears stayed open to it. But growing into gibberish. But growing into something slightly more coherent the longer their ears stayed open to it. More coherent the longer their ears stayed open to it. Okay, who is this person, the survivor? Alright, well, he's injured anyway, so you can't really tell who it is. They don't really say. Okay. More coherent the longer their ears stayed open to it.
Death's head! Death's head! Death's head! Death's head! Death's head! Death's head! Death's head!
They found a naked man lying over a bit of...
Death's head!
They found a naked man lying over a bit of curved and broken wood, staring to the water, and refusing to lift his head at the sound of their approach. They found the naked staring to the water, and refusing to lift his head at the sound of their approach. Approach. Of course, well, approach. So annoying when you talk and, like, your throat goes... Staring to the water, and refusing to lift his head at the sound of their... approach. Cahin killed the motor, and 2 of his men reached out to grab him. Cahin listened to the sound of the rhythmic... Cahin listened to the sound of the rhythmic drums in the night, finding them all the way out here from the shores of Nosy Be. Cahin killed the motor, and 2 of his men reached out to grab him. Cahin listened to the finding them all of the rhythmic drums in the night, finding them all the way out here from the shores of Nosy Be. They had to grab the man beneath his arms and heaved him through the water. His torso slipped in alongside the floating debris, and he screamed so hard his voice turned to scratches. His voice turned to scratches. They lugged him over the edge of the inflatable boat and dropped him face down at Cahin's feet, and dropped him face down at Cahin's feet.
Death's head!
He slurred.
Death's head!
They lugged him over They lugged him and dropped him face down at Cahin's feet.
Death's head!
He slurred.
Death's head! Death's head!
His hand bolted up and seized a fistful of Cahin's pant leg, glaring wild-eyed as if he could see nothing except the gates of hell.
Death's head!
It's too loud. Was it too loud?
Death's head!
I clipped it. Wild-eyed, as if he could see nothing except the gates of hell. Glaring wild-eyed. His pant leg, glaring wild-eyed, as if he could see nothing except the gates of hell.
Death's head!
As if he could see nothing except the gates of hell.
Death's head.
I keep going too loud.
Death's head. Death's head. Death's head. Death's head. Death's head.
This guy's just crazy. This guy's just crazy.
Deaths
of hell.
Deaths
Of hell.
Death.
See nothing except the gates of hell. Hell.
Death's head. Death's head.
Cahin realized there were body parts floating alongside the debris. God damn it. Debris. Cahin realized. God damn it. That was a pretty good take, too.
Death's head.
Cahin realized there were body parts floating alongside the debris. Limp and half-eaten hunks that floated face down on relaxed swells. Cahin the debris that floated face down on relaxed swells. Half-eaten hunks that floated face down on relaxed swells. The sole survivor chanted nonsense from the center of their boat. One of this man's legs was missing beneath the knee. Scary. One of this man's from the center of their boat. One of this man's legs wells. Whoops. One of this man. Scusi. One of this man's legs was missing beneath the knee. The gushing appendage blasted their ankles with a flood of crimson. Cahin did not have to ask what these men had been doing. They were poachers. He knew. He knew. And did not like it. His fingers closed around the sidearm. Hold on. And did not like it. He knew. They were poachers. He knew. To ask what these Cahin ankles with a flood of crimson. Cahin did not have to ask what these men had been doing. That was sound. Gushing appendage blasted their ankles with a flood of crimson. Cahin did not have to ask what these men had been doing. They were poachers. He knew. And did not like it. His fingers closed around the sidearm. 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 God damn it. His fingers closed around the sidearm on the seat beside him. He dropped the hammer. The man was too agitated to notice. The man was too agitated. The man was too agitated to The man was too agitated to notice. The man was too agitated to notice. His eyes were wider than marbles, and he kept screaming those same two words over and over.
Death's head. Death's head.
Okay. Keep clipping it.
Death's head. 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 Death's head.
Over.
Death's head. Death's head. Death's head.
Over. The man was too agitated. Cahin did not have to ask. They were poachers. 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 He knew. And did not like it. His fingers closed around the side. His finger. Him. He dropped the hammer. The man was too agitated to. The man was too agitated to notice. His eyes were wider than marbles, and he kept screaming those same two words over.
Death's head. Death's head. Death's head. Death's head. Death's head.
Superstition rose on the faces of the men. Nervous eyes darted through the water, suddenly tense because they feared the evil waiting just beneath the surface. The man's voice grew louder still, even more agitated. Cahin hated it, and pulled the trigger. The bullet drilled straight through his forehead, red slush pelting the faces of his soldiers. Dulcim, Dulcim, Cahin said. Cahin said. Dulcim, of his soldiers. That. Red slush pelting the faces of his. The bullet drilled straight through his forehead. Red slush pelting the faces of his soldiers. Red slush pelting soldiers. Red slush pelting the face. Bam, 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 bam. Forehead. No, what happened? No. Forehead. Red soldiers. Dulcim. Dulcim. Nervous, suddenly tense. The man's even more. Cahin hated it, and pulled the trigger. The bullet drilled straight through his forehead. Red slush, said. Water break! It's getting good, huh? Huh? What happened? What caused the carnage? I carry this around the house. Not with a bag, but I just carry it around the house because I'm trying to stay hydrated. My wife hates it. She's like, why can't you just have a glass of water like a normal person? So I'm trying to hydrate for my voice. This is the moneymaker. Dulcim, Cahin said. His men rolled the corpse up onto the rubber wall and pushed him overboard. The body bobbing in the matchstick mess behind them. His men rolled the corpse up onto the rubber wall and pushed him. Dulcim, Cahin said. His men rolled the corpse up onto the rubber wall. His men rolled the corpse up onto the rubber wall. His men rolled the corpse up onto the rubber. His men rolled the corpse up onto the rubber wall. Like a tickle in my throat. Dulcim, Cahin said. His men rolled the corpse up onto the rubber. His men rolled the corpse up onto the rubber wall and pushed him overboard. The body bobbing in the matchstick mess behind them as Cahin restarted the motor. Bobbing in the matchstick. Starting to get warm in here. It's time for my first break. The body bobbing. Pushed him overboard. Men rolled the corpse up onto the rubber. His men rolled the corpse up and said. As Cahin restarted the motor. Pushed him overboard. The body bobbing in the matchstick mess behind them as Cahin restarted the motor. There was still a ways to go, and they couldn't afford no more distractions. Cahin glanced back and smiled at the dead body floating there. Whatever madness had taken him would not infect his men. Whatever madness had taken him would not infect his men. Madness had taken him would not infect his men. Madness had taken him would not infect his men. Madness had taken him would not infect his men. Whatever mad would not infect it. Whatever mad floating there. And they couldn't have restarted the motor behind them as Cahin restarted the motor. There was still a ways to go, and they couldn't afford no more distractions. No, I mean, should it be, and they could, still a ways to go. They couldn't afford. I read it wrong. That's why. There was still a There's still a ways to go. And they could afford no more distractions. There was still a ways to go. And they could afford no more distractions. And they could afford no more distractions. Cahin more distractions. Cahin glanced back. More distractions. Cahin glanced more distractions. Cahin glanced back and smiled at the dead body floating there. Whatever madness had taken him would not infect his there. Floating there. Whatever madness had taken him would not infect his men. All right, one more paragraph and I'm done. We'll keep it on going. Taken him would not infect his men. Cahin thought whatever madness had infected him. I need to redo that. Whatever madness had taken him would not. Whatever madness had taken him would not infect his men. Cahin thought he saw the body ship. Cahin thought he saw the body slip beneath the waves. Cahin thought he saw the body slip beneath the waves, and then a geyser of red bubbles shot up to replace the spot where he'd been. Cahin, starting a sentence on Cahin is such bullshit. Geyser, Cahin thought not infect his men. Okay. Whatever madness had taken him would not infect his men. I think I like that better. And glanced back. Madness had taken him. There. Whatever madness had taken him would not infect his men. Him would not infect his men. Madness had taken him would not infect his men. Cahin thought he saw the body slip beneath the waves, and then a geyser of red bubbles shot up to replace the spot where he'd been. Rather than question it, Cahin accelerated. None of the men could bring themselves to look over their shoulders. None wanted to. Instead, they checked their weapons and clutched them harder. Breathe, Sean, breathe. Instead, they checked. None wanted to. None of the men could bring themselves to. None of the men. Accelerated, rather than question it. And then a geyser of red. My dog's trying to bark. Up beneath the. They checked their weapons and clutched them harder. Weapons and clutched them harder. Cahin thought he should give them a word of encouragement. Cahin thought he should give them a word of encouragement. In days gone by, Alzir would have been the one to do that. But the pirate king had a rule, and that was to never lie to his men. While eager bodies were a dime a dozen, loyalty was rare. Cahin thought he should give them a word of encouragement. Cahin thought he should give them a word of encouragement. Let's do this again. Their weapons and clutched them harder. Cahin thought he should give them a word of it. Cahin thought he should give them a word of advice. Cahin thought he should give them a word of encouragement. In days gone by, Alzir would have been the one to do that. In days gone by, Alzir would have been the one to do that. Alzir would have been the one to do that. Alzir would have been the one to do that. Yeah. Alzir would have been the one to do that. In days gone by, Alzir. Cahin thought. All right, you know what? That's just telling me. Unwanted to. I need to take a break. Clutch them harder. Their weapons. And clutch them harder. Cahin thought he should give them a word of. Cahin thought he should give them a word of encouragement. Kahin thought he should give them a word of encouragement. In days gone by, Alzir would have been the one to do that. Alzir would have been the one to do that. Alzir would have been the one to do that. Alzir would have been the one to do that. But the Pirate King had a rule, and that was to never lie to his men. While eager bodies were a dime a dozen, loyalty was rare. And yet there were no words to set their minds at ease. He might have known something about what haunted these waters. He might have known something. He might have known something about what haunted these waters. He might have known something about what haunted these waters. But it was nothing to ever speak aloud. But it was nothing to ever speak aloud. But it was nothing to ever speak aloud. He stayed quiet. They kept going. He stayed quiet. They kept going. All right. I'll clean it up in a second. It is starting to get stuffy in here, so it's feeling like break time. Turn my fan on, open up the booth, circulate the air. But there we go. That's chapter 13. So hopefully you guys enjoy this. Hopefully you guys, whoever's watching, picks up the audiobook and has fun watching this. But yeah, that's about it. I'm going to stop my recording. I have 45 minutes. Not too bad. 6 minutes of that was me yapping about the book. So thanks for watching. I'll do another one when I get to a crazy chapter. Maybe I'll do this if I see that it's going to be kind of a crazy ass horror chapter, kind of like when I was doing Kill for Satan. But thanks for watching. It's getting hot in here. I got to go, and I'll talk to all of you next time. Bye-bye.